Hi, it's James from the Canadian Urban Garden. Today we're going to plant some spinach and cilantro in the cold frame and even behind it. So it's springtime here now, and the ground isn't frozen anymore. So we can put in the spinach that I had bought, the seeds that I had bought, and the cilantro that my neighbor gave me. But it got so hot so quickly, and the forecast looks so good that we'll also run a test plot for spinach in behind it to see how well the cold frame works. Before we plant those seeds, we're going to amend the soil with this earthworm castings. In the springtime, I normally amend the soil with all the beds with a bunch of compost. It's early in the season, so there's not much available at this point, but I have these leftover ones from last fall. I'm just going to say that a lot of people will amend their beds in the fall before the winter. I can't do that because we build a huge slide here. It's like this high, packs it all down and becomes a huge chunk of ice. So I'm going to do it now, and then get to planting the spinach and cilantro. So on this 4 by 9 foot bed, I just dumped a huge bag of earthworm castings. And I'll put more compost on it later, but it's hard to source right now. So all I'm gonna do is just kind of work it into the soil and pick out any of the weeds. There's a little bit of grass growing in there. Being at the edge of the lawn. And just work it in a little bit on top. So in order to know how many to plant and how much to plant and where to plant it, I'm going to use the square foot gardening method. So that is a method that I've talked about before, derived by a guy named Mel Bartholomew, that systematizes how many of each type of plant you could put in a square foot. So that's what I'm going to follow here. So the way I'm going to do that, if you remember, my box is about 4 feet by 3 feet. So if I go like this, and divide it in thirds this way, right? You can use a measuring tape if you want, but you don't necessarily have to. And then in quarters this way, so just a bit too long, but they can go underneath. You can make these more permanent too if you want. But in this case I won't. So I have 3 types of spinach: King of Denmark, long-standing Bloomsdale, and Verdil, and 1 type of cilantro. This is the one that I got from my neighbor. So what I'm going to do is plant the cilantro on the west-facing side, and then each type of spinach next to it, and I'll label them so we can see which one grows the best and hangs on the longest and all that sort of thing. So for the cilantro, the spacing is 1 per square inch. You can go right by what's on the packet. So that means not 1 per square inch, 1 per inch of seed spacing. But the actual plant spacing, you want it to be every 10 inches. So it's basically telling you on there to go 1 per foot. I'm going to go quite a bit more than that, maybe 16 per foot, and then we'll thin it out if we need to later. Like I said, I'm going to do 16 per square foot, and then they're only 1/4 inch deep. For the cilantro, I'm going to make some small trenches like that in the ground and then cover them up because they have very small seeds, and it'll be easier to plant. So the spacing for spinach is 9 per square foot. So in the next row, we're going to put in King of Denmark spinach at 9 per square foot and a ½ inch deep. And then in the last row, we're going to put in long-standing Bloomsdale spinach at 9 per square foot and a ½ inch deep. So there we have it. We have cilantro, verdil, King of Denmark, and long-standing Bloomsdale spinach. And then we're going to run a test plot in the ground outside of the cold frame right behind it. So here we're going to run a test plot to see if the cold frame actually works. Once again, because of the forecast, it looks like we might not even need a cold frame, but even if you do something in gardening that you don't need, why not test it out? So I'm just gonna eyeball these again. Something like that. And then do 9 per square foot, just like in the test, just like inside. Yeah, so we're just letting the hose run for a while because it's got the water from all last winter. I just want to show you a little something. Last fall I planted garlic under here and I have no idea if it's going to have come up, but I can already see a few of them coming up because this is right where the middle of the slide was. Let's have a look. So there's a few coming up. You see them there? There should be 45 of them. Look, you see? So plants are pretty incredible. They survived the winter even underneath the slide. So I'm going to leave the mulch off for a bit to let it come up. But I'm going to put the bit of fencing back down because otherwise, if you look next to it, you'll see what the squirrels did to the ground. I don't want them to do that to my garlic. So for now, we'll just leave it under cover. So I'm just going to water it in now. Pretty light spray so we don't disturb the soil too much. You'll see over the course of the summer that I have different ways to irrigate my gardens, but for now we'll just do it by hand. So we're just watering in the last of that test plot of the spinach. You'll notice I didn't label it here. Actually, I forgot to fill part of it in. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you guys when it comes up. I'm going to see if anybody can guess the right varieties here by comparing them to the ones inside the cold frame. But we're on. That's the first thing that went on the ground this year. Next, we're going to pot up some lettuce and kale and leafy greens, and transplanted my onions into bigger pots so they can grow. But the garden started. We'll see how it goes. Thank you.